Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm very pleased to introduce this ensemble with the difficult and maybe a little bit whimsical name. And the time I know you, you changed the name 3 times. In the beginning, it was they were called Lil Jörg Frei, so with a Swiss reference, and then they changed to the ensemble whose name is U because Jörg Frey said, okay, this is my name. And now the name is the Triumphant Return of the Ensemble, and we will also talk about why this return is so triumphant. And what is very interesting about this ensemble, and I think it fits very, very well into this conference.
This recording in progress.
Okay. That's good to know. Recording in progress. So this experimental music ensemble exists within the video game Animal Crossing and consists of 4 people from different artistic disciplines. They met at, or most of them met at California Institute of the Arts in Los Angeles, and we are connected to 2 of them, Morgan and Dicky, and so Dicky Beto and Morgan Gerstmar and Pluto Bell and Stephanie Cheng-Smith, they are also part of the ensemble. So today we have the premiere, the insight into 2 new pieces, and Dicky, why this return is so triumphal that you decided to put it into your name?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. We're actually in the process of changing the name again to something else that we'll announce soon. But I think it was just, the whole project is kind of cheeky. And so being really bombastic about our return seemed appropriate. We took a long hiatus of 2 years now since we've actually performed together, in part because one of us, who I won't embarrass, lost their Switch on an airplane. And so we could, we broke up for 2 years because of that.
Thank you so much for being here and staying up so late at night. It's 1 o'clock in Los Angeles, and we appreciate this a lot. And we met 2 years ago when you made your first performance, and I was doing a radio broadcast about in-game concerts. And I love very much your approach because it's not like music that is transferred into the world of a video game, but it's music that is created directly within the game. And for me, this was one of the most fresh and creative approaches during COVID, where many artists have created new music formats in virtual space. And I'm also interested to see how all this works without a pandemic as a context. We will soon see the 3 and the 4 of them as avatars in the game Animal Crossing. And this game, just a few words, is a simulation game by Nintendo, which is played in real time. And at the beginning of the game, you are given a small house in a virtual village, and the village is inhabited by animals that behave humanly, and you can communicate with those animals. And you have to pay off your loan. You have to build and expand the house. And to do this, you perform certain activities like picking fruits and selling them, fishing or fossil hunting. And many of these activities in the game have very specific sounds, and that's where the music comes in. And to go a little bit back to this first quarantine time when you had this idea, how did you came up with the idea of playing the game in such a way that the game sounds become composed experimental music? Stephanie, maybe you can look back to the
Sure.
first hour
Yeah.
of your ensemble. Welcome.
Thanks. I think it felt like a pretty natural thing for us to do, but I think where it started was during the pandemic. We all noticed each other posting photos on Instagram or something of us playing this game. And then I think there was one time where I visited Dickie's Island, and Dickie had mentioned he wanted to create like an art gallery and do concerts and things like that on his island. And I think we were just playing around with all of the different objects and realizing that they made some interesting sounds and that there could be some really nice combinations. And then it turned into another friend asking us to do a performance on a live streaming show. And so we decided to do that as like a fun thing to do. And then it became, it ended up being a really fun show that a lot of people liked. And so we just kept doing them. And, but I will say, I think experimenting with sounds like that is something that we also do normally in real life. So it was an attempt at simulating that while we could when isolated.
So first there was the game, and then the music came. That's also, I think, interesting for this conference here. I think we watch and listen to the first performance, and then we have another talk of 15 minutes to look a little bit behind the scenes. Thank you so much for staying awake. See you in 7-8 minutes. Yeah. Licht ausmachen. Right. I love the end of this piece. What is this little figure up there, which has the last word?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how this performance exactly work. Maybe Morgan or Stephanie, you are composers. So how much is improvised in this performance and how much is written down in the score? We just see the avatars, we see these gentle little figures, but what is written behind?
Yeah, I can answer that one. The extent to where this is a written piece is more like a series of instructions. So we all shared a document with each other, and it was literally things like Dickie interact with the looms, then Morgan interact with the bobbleheads, and then Stephanie will do the foosball thing. So it was mostly just a series of instructions. And the first form of this piece had a few different objects in it. And when we first rehearsed it, we discovered some things worked better than others. And so we switched out some objects, but really when we were performing it, we were all on a shared voice chat, and it ended up being that we were basically just talking with each other the whole time about what comes next, and then who's going to do what next, and okay, this happened for long enough. Let's move on to the next section. So I guess the short answer is the form of it was composed, but a lot of the timing of the actions is just kind of as we felt was appropriate. Yeah. Do y'all have any? I think that's accurate, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think each of the pieces is a little different in that way. Like some of them have clearer scores or kind of like parameters, and other ones are more improvised. The next piece that is also about 7 minutes or so, for instance, that one had like certain like patterns of activities to do in sets, and Pluto was directing us to move. Like they had come up with a kind of score of when to transition from one pattern to the next one, with the idea that we would improvise on the patterns that they had created. And the final piece in this program, which is like the longest one, that one I'd come up with like basically a pattern of color combinations. And so the piece was kind of centered around this idea that it would be visual in the game, and that there was like a goal in trying to get certain kinds of syncopations to come, which has to be improvised because it depends on when you start the things. And because Stephanie is the one recording the performances, she has to make a lot of decisions about camera movement and if things are actually working for her, because it sounds different for each person. And we talk a lot, so we actually don't know what it sounds like. So a lot of the time we have like a rough score. So Stephanie's talking about like coming up with a score in advance and then trying things out and changing it. But so what often happens is we'll have an idea, try it, see how it works, and then make a lot of adjustments, and then come up with a kind of like a modified score, and then try that again. And we don't usually hear it until we listen back to the recording, because we have phone conversations going on. We have like Zoom windows. I mean, there's like so much stuff happening that it's actually hard sometimes to pay attention to what we're doing in the game exclusively.
So a piece is always a live performance or a recording of a live performance. And before, there is also a lot of work done, because you have to decide which objects you take, or you have to prepare your set. And how is this process going on? How do you decide how many objects you take and which one?
trial.
Um,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
you want me to talk for?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, go ahead,
Um,
Morgan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, generally we have the game has rooms inside of the homes, or we can go to, there's like an island where you can kind of take photographs and things, and you can set up rooms in there. And so you can kind of just lay out the items and test how they sound together. And then sometimes, like we've said, we visit each other and interact with items together, because sometimes the items, you don't really know how they're going to sound together, because you have to actually interact with them. So having like several people over to hear how the sounds interact with each other. And yeah, we do things like that. So, yes, it's a lot of like setting up the room, and then it's sometimes aesthetically, how does it look? Do we like how the room looks? And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think also like thinking about how like certain like combinations of types of sound, because the game kind of has like a lot of the sounds are variations on the same kind of thing. So some of them are like have a rhythm in them, and some of them are more like tonal or just kind of noise. So it's just sort of like making decisions about what might be interesting in terms of sound together, but also like visual, because it's such a visual component to each of the performances. So we use that a lot in them as well.
And you use the sounds which once the Nintendo game designers have created. And I think this is also interesting in terms of authorship. So what do you think? Or how do you consider yourself? Are you players? Are you composers? Are you sound curators maybe, or performers? How do you solve this authorship situation?
I would say we definitely consider ourselves composers still in this aspect, but you bring up a very interesting point that we've discussed a lot about, that, there are sound designers that made these sounds that we're using. But I still think it's valid that we're composers, because we're, or we're arranging how those sounds are used, and the camera movement also is an artistic decision also that changes how those sounds are heard. I don't know if we've really come to terms with the authorship question either, just because, I'm not really sure if we've like come to an understanding of how we want to handle that. But, we respect the work of the sound designers, but I feel like part of it too is, if we think of it as interacting with objects in real life, it's a lot easier to not get caught up about that. I think the only time we do get caught up about that is if they're, we've thought about maybe releasing a record or something like that, but that seems maybe off limits because of that authorship issue. Definitely off limits.
Yeah. And when you say we've thought about it, it's people have asked and we think about it and are like, we probably shouldn't do that. But I actually was my father, who doesn't really know anything about any of the artistic projects that I do, really. And he's not really interested in art or music or anything like that. And I was trying to explain to him what we do in this last night, because he was asking me what I was doing this weekend. And his analogy was kind of like, oh, so it's like, you didn't make the guitar, but, you're playing it or something like that. And I was like, yeah, sure. I guess that seems like a valid way to think about it.
And what do you like about this sound qualities of the Nintendo Animal Crossing game? What is so specific about these sounds?
Well, Dickie was just talking about how there's different types of sounds. So there's some sounds that, you interact with it and it makes a percussive sound. So just once it will make a sound. And then there's some things that will continuously make sound. and it will be sort of like a background noise. And then there will be some sounds that will last for a few seconds. And so, they just lend to putting together like a really interesting performance, especially since, we all are experimental musicians. So like Stephanie mentioned earlier, these are sounds that we would probably we would perform with objects in real life like this. so although it doesn't necessarily make the sound that you would make in real life, although we have talked about making a real life performance of using objects that we find in Animal Crossing in real life, which would be very interesting, I think. These sounds are things that I think this just felt very familiar to us to work with the sounds in this way, even though they're pre-recorded by sound engineers for the game. So.
But compared to real life, I would say these sounds are more limited because, for example, you can't play a sound as fast as you want, or you can't, you can just act in the logic of the game. You have to play by the rules. So do you sometimes wish you could intervene more deeply in the sound of the game or manipulate or hack the sound?
Go ahead, Dickie.
Well, I think we probably all have different takes on this, but for me, I don't want that. I like the working with limitations. It's part of what's engaging about it, and what I think we've kept doing it for so long, even though there was like such a long hiatus, is that it's gratifying to have this sort of like constraint and figure out what can we do within that that's interesting to us. So that's sort of I wouldn't want to hack it or have any sort of more input into it other than just manipulating it, because then like why would I be doing that in a video game? For me, like I would rather do that outside of the game. So that's my answer, but I cut Stephanie off. So.
Yeah, I was going to say another part of it. So I also like the constraints of the game, but another thing that I think is really enjoyable about working with Animal Crossing is exploring all of the different objects and trying to find new sounds or thinking about ways these different sounds can interact with each other. So just as an example, anything in the game that has a switch where you switch it on or off, lights or other machines, they all have the same switch sound. But occasionally you'll discover an object that doesn't have that same switch sound. It has something different, and that's a really exciting moment. And you try to think of ways you can now use this in a piece. So I think being able to kind of having that exploration aspect of what the game can offer and trying to come up with combinations given the limitations is, I would say, a lot of what we enjoy about working in it.
When I was like diving into these performances, I was reminded a lot, like the attitude of Fluxus, and it was also written in a critique about your performances, and also this musique concrète is very close in atmosphere. Do you make like conscious references to these also historic turns in music history? I mean, now, it's maybe a turn that music is created virtually. Before it was a turn, that everyday objects can be sound. So if you should write a theory about yourself, what references would you choose?
I mean, I think Fluxus is like in my just general background of what I think about when I make work. I teach, and every semester I have my students perform a concert of Fluxus pieces. And I don't teach music, I'm teaching like film students, but I have them, do Fluxus performances, and, it's my partner is always like, why are you and all of your friends so like into Fluxus still? I mean, he's not asking in like a negative way. He's like really curious about what is so interesting. And I always think like, it's just, it's like like a time of work where people were really exploring like all of the possibilities within something really small. And it turns out there's a lot to do there. And it's also very like playful and fun. And so it's like really rewarding, I think, to engage with that work. And I think that spirit is like animating in this work for sure. Even though I don't think we necessarily, I mean, I haven't in the works that I've done, and I don't know about Stephanie or Morgan or Pluto, but I haven't like directly thought about referencing anything because I'm so like focused on just figuring out what I can do with what's on offer in the game that I'm not trying to think about it outside of those possibilities. But I think like the Fluxus is such a big part of like my background, I guess, that or it's always there. So.
You said in the introduction that, yeah, it was a quarantine idea. It was also, yeah, a social need, making music together, meeting in a virtual place. And I now see that many online projects or virtual concerts or interactive spaces which were founded during this first year of Corona vanished. They were not continued. What do you think? Does your approach work even without the pandemic, or is this context also necessary to explain the reason why you meet inside a video game?
I don't know if that context is necessary to give us a reason to use this game as a way to make music. But I do think it was challenging to continue when more real life things started happening again. I think the other part of it too is we also just got tired of playing that game and didn't really want to play that game anymore, which meant we didn't really want to we didn't really feel the need to make music in it anymore. I think that was partially due to burnout, but I think that is a thing that happens with video games. So I think when we came back together to make work for this event, it was initially challenging because we all kind of forgot how things worked, both in the game, but also how to collaborate virtually. Like we couldn't get our voice chat working at first, and it was pretty messy and didn't go smoothly. But then I think we quickly picked it back up again and things started feeling more natural. But yeah, in terms of continuing on past this event, I think it'll probably be challenging because there are less people that are wanting to watch like the streaming shows and things like that. But I think we really enjoyed coming back together and doing work like this. So it may be more in the form of recorded video posted somewhere instead of like a live stream event.
Great, yes, and I would say let's now enjoy this return of the ensemble again. You have two other pieces, or is it one piece in two rooms? Maybe you can.
It's two different pieces.
It's two different pieces, and can you maybe, also to understand more your work behind? What was the biggest challenge in those pieces for you? That we will see.
Biggest challenge. Well, the Siren one,
the second,
it wasn't really like a significant challenge, but it was just like figuring out how to place them and how to navigate the piece in a way where we did a couple of different versions of it, and one of them we were like walking around constantly, and it was a really distracting sound, and it was kind of shifting the focus away from what I had been interested in, which was like the phasing of these sounds against one another. So it was just, it was challenging just in the sense of trying to figure out, my cat's in my face, trying to figure out what how to make it work, because it was also something that I couldn't, these are all pieces that are hard to do, to figure out by yourself. So, and we're all very busy. So actually the biggest challenge was like, when can we meet? Morgan is a parent, and so on some of our meetings, there's like, a child in the background. There's
And
like
a
a
child and
bird
a
flying
cat.
around, a dog. It's like a whole menagerie.
Sorry.
Okay, so it really fits that I have my kid here. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. We will see these two pieces and say goodbye after the performance. Thank you so much for these insights, and we're looking forward to these two pieces. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for this triumphant return. It's a very, exciting, meaningful, and funny contribution to this festival. Thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you.
And all the best for the future.